you've been working out for quite some time and you're not seeing progress, or if you're getting bored with the gym or with working out, right? Like it's probably because you've been doing the exact same thing for long periods of time. Yo, what up, guys? Today on the Elevate Your Life podcast, Joe and I are going to be talking about two main topics. One is the biggest reasons that people don't get started with their personal fitness. And number two is once they do get started with their fitness, the biggest reasons why you're not really seeing progress.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to run through a bunch of those and give you some solutions you can actually apply to your daily life. At the end, we'll share our elevation model that you guys can use to actually get results. It's what we teach our clients in our coaching program to help them get real results in 4 to 6 months. So definitely check that out as well. So, all right. So we got a nice website pulled up here with some of the common mistakes, common things that hold up, just for some talking points. And I know, Seth's been coaching for a couple of years and I've been coaching for about 6 months now. And we see a lot of different excuses, and they all seem to stem from the same sort of thing, which is usually a gap of some sort, whether it's a confidence gap or a knowledge gap or anything like that. And sometimes it's just a flat out excuse, or we'll just call it a motivation gap is something that you've maybe heard of before. And we're just going to try to tackle
inspiration gap.
Inspiration gap, right? So, at Elevate, we don't really believe in motivation. We believe in momentum. For example, habits. There's a great book out there you should read called The Power of Habits. Their habits are stored in a different part of your brain where you're not even thinking about it. And if you can get your body into a routine, habits feel really good. And if you don't do your habit, you feel weird. And so, that's how we sometimes feel when we're trying to start a new habit, is we feel weird or uncomfortable. And that kind of rolls right into starting to go to the gym, right? That first day versus week 6 of the gym, when you've gone 5 days a week and you're starting to look better, feel better, and progressing in weight, right? So it's a total difference. So we want to talk about that beginning stage, that part where everyone kind of struggles with getting started. Because once you get started, we all usually know things start to work out pretty well. So we're gonna jump right into some of these different things that hold people back here. So the first one, the most common excuse, we'll call it, or information gap. And this is, you've probably said this before. I know I've said this before. In general, we all say this at some point in our lives, right? Excuse number one, your thought, Seth. It says, "I'm too tired to exercise."
I'm too tired. Yeah. I mean, today I was really tired too. when I hit legs, I think the biggest thing with this is just like figuring out your priorities, right? It's like, regardless of whether you have energy or not, for me, I think what helps me so much just be consistent is, for one, what Joe was talking about earlier is just your habits, right? Like when you have habits in place, you don't really need to have motivation. You don't need to think about it. It doesn't matter if you have tons of energy or no energy, right? It's like, it doesn't take any mental or emotional energy to just go and just continue to like he was saying earlier, like the momentum, right? Like I've found in these last few weeks, right? I've been traveling a little bit. I came back from home in California, and it was really easy for me not to go to the gym, right? And these last few weeks, I actually wasn't the most on top of my workouts like I have been the previous few weeks. And it's way tougher, right? Like it's so much tougher, even though I love going to the gym. But a day like today where I'm kind of tired, it's just hey, my priorities are I want to be in great physical shape, right? Because I love the benefits of it.
Absolutely. There's a lot of ways and strategies you can get done. I mean, what he was just suggesting there is thinking about the future, right? Thinking about who in 5 or 10 years do you want to be able to run around, or do you want to have lower back problems like most people? Do you want to, start developing osteoporosis when you're 50, or would you like to push that off for 20 or 30 years so you can still play golf or something, right? So there's a lot of reasons, motivationally that happen there too, There's a lot of things too, if you feel too tired or things like that. So our brain, lives with different triggers, is what they're called. So basically there's a cue and a response and then an action. It's from a great book called Atomic Habits, which I definitely encourage everyone to read. This book's awesome. I read
the habits books.
One summer. So good. Habits are huge. If you can conquer habits, small things, it builds up to big results, later on in life, and just anything you do. And so, but Atomic Habits is great because it's like, whenever you get to a point, there's this thing called the tipping point. Another great book. You should read it. Malcolm Gladwell. Tipping point. Okay. I'm just going to give you a bunch of books today, I guess.
Everyone's going to have a list of like 30 books to read after the podcast.
Sorry. There's just so many books about habits that you got to ingest them, and, but the tipping point. So there's a certain point where you get over the edge and you just do it. Right. And the tipping point for every single person is once they get to the gym. No one has ever come to the gym, walked inside, signed in, and said, you know what? I'm turning around. I can't do it. I'm too tired. Right? Now, once you're there, there's something in your brain that's just like, you know what? I'm here. Oh, that person's running on the treadmill harder than I probably am. I'm gonna go run on the treadmill. I'm gonna go get started. And you just get to that point where you get started. So the hardest thing, right, if you're too tired, is just getting out of the house. And if you can just get out of the house, you'll go do your workout. If you just get out of the house, you go to your workout. You just gotta have that trigger. Gotta have your trigger, right? Some of the small things, you can put your exercise clothing on your pillow. So you're tired, you have to physically move your exercise clothing in order to sleep. You pick it up, you're like, I'm going, right? So you can do a lot of these little small things. You can have a little energy drink, a little pre-workout, a little, what was it? My wife and I were doing a race and we had ginger, took a shot of ginger. Seth, you ever done that?
I don't think so.
Dude, it wakes you right up. I was ready to run like 3 miles. Let's go, and took a little shot of ginger or whatever. It's a little supplement you can get. But so some of it's just like planning, right? Strategies like, okay, I'm committed. I want this for this. Maybe you know what, you're gonna have kids in a few years, or maybe you have kids and you want to be able to run around, with your kids, or maybe whatever it is you're trying to do, reach some goals in some sporting events, starting climbing or whatever, right? So that's a huge one. So too tired is a mentality thing, 80% of the time, right? Sometimes if you don't get enough sleep, it's really bad. But, Seth, go ahead.
And a lot of what we're talking about right now is it really comes down to setting yourself up for success, right? So the last thing Joe just mentioned, right, is like getting enough rest, right? If you're very well rested, you're just more likely to make good choices, right? That's one of the biggest things when it comes to setting yourself up for success. Another thing is like having an actual plan that you can follow. So you're not just going to the gym and like willy-nilly just doing whatever you want, right? So it's like if you have a plan to execute, you're very well rested. You have it scheduled into your calendar, like, hey, I'm going to go to the gym this day. Sometimes I like to change up when I go to the gym, right? But typically I'll go to around the same time for like several weeks at a time, like in the morning. And then I might get kind of bored of that or kind of want to do something else, switch up my routine. And then I'll start going like in the afternoon or in the evening, but I'll do something like that. Again, creating that habit just so it's like Joe was saying, like that cue, right? Like having those triggers, having those cues. It's like, okay, cool. Now it's time to go. Which it's funny that you mentioned getting out of the house because, some people love at-home workouts, but even for myself, I find it really tough to do home workouts because of that exact thought, right? Like I love whenever I start to put my workout clothes on, right? I take my pre-workout, I'm getting all my stuff ready. And it's like, right when I get out of the house and start listening to music on the drive, it's like, it doesn't matter how tired I was before that. Like right when I start walking, like you said, into the gym, it's like, it's a totally different scenario and setting. And it's just like, that my trigger is like when I'm in the gym, I just go hard, regardless of what I felt before that. So I think there's a lot of things that like that's just a very small percentage of like what I mean when I say setting yourself up for success. And you'll hear me talk a lot about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it. Just get in there and, throw some things around, it's good for you. All right, sweet. So second one, this is another excuse people can make. It says, I can't afford a gym. I can't afford a gym. And that's a funny one for a lot of reasons. Seth's got a big smile on his face. Seth, why don't you respond to that real quick, and I'll say a couple words too of wisdom.
I mean, all I got to say is if that's an issue, then there's just a lot of other issues that are like a reality if you can't afford a gym membership, right? Like $20 a month.
$20, right? Yeah. I mean, if you legitimately are someone who cannot afford a gym, heart goes out to you. And there are playgrounds, you know, you can go do some push-ups, right? And I did that in high school. You know, we didn't want to pay for a gym. We went to a playground. Brother, I would do dips and pull-ups and go play soccer or something, you know, or there's a track at my high school. You go walk, you can go for jogs, you can do stadiums, plenty of things you can sort of get creative with if you legitimately cannot afford one. But most of the time, I mean, what Planet Fitness is $10 a month nowadays, right? You know, there's plenty of gyms, $10 a month. And, you know, most people can afford, you know, stuff like that. And so the thing is you really think about it logically, the one thing that you're going to have your whole life. And I don't think life's about you per se, or, you know, it's really about like how you look or anything like that. I really think it's about like helping people make an impact, things like that. But the one thing that will be the same common denominator in anything that you do, if you'd like to help people be successful, whatever it is, it's your body. Like if your body feels awful, you will perform worse at work. If your body feels hurt, you're going to get sick more. If you're not getting sleep, if you're not taking care of it, you're not taking care of your cardiovascular system, I mean, everything else suffers, you know, and then things start to cost more. $10 a month now turns into an extra $100 a month in health insurance later, you know, and going to numerous, you know, doctor's visits for heart disease or stroke, the leading causes of death, you know, in the US, are all a lot of them are preventable illnesses. You know, a lot of people die from cigarettes, for example, you know, and it's a lot of controllable stuff, and it's a priority, you know, thing, right? It's wanting to feel good now with your pint of ice cream because it tastes so good. I love ice cream. It's my bane, you know, I gotta avoid it, right? I feel so good right now versus the short-term pain of, man, this is heavy and my lungs are screaming for oxygen, right? And the long-term benefit of that one versus the short-term pleasure of the ice cream, the long-term, you know, pain of that when your knees are hurting and you don't have any cartilage left because you've not been working out the muscles, and then your bones are scraping, right? So it's all the small things, you know, it's all that future. It's who do you want to be? How do you want to live in 10 years? You know, and you really want to take a good think on that. And it's never too late to get started. That's the biggest thing. It's never too late to be started. You know, I think the one of the next ones here, you know, is I'm a parent. You know, I don't have time, right? I'm a parent.
Or I own a business, or I'm like grinding to build my business with whatever it is, right? I'm in sales, I'm a recruiter, you know, like I'm trying to crush it in my profession, you know?
Yeah, I mean, all of the things, right? There's these really important things that we thought through, committed to, and all that stuff, and then we're, you know, not putting any time into. We're neglecting other things, right? And it's important to, you know, at times, you know, spend times in important areas that especially help everything else flourish, right? If you know, if you're a parent, it's like, you know, I'm not a parent yet, be a parent in a couple of years, you know, but I've got a brother-in-law who's got, you know, a little child, and what he did is he built a gym at his house. You know, he found on Facebook Marketplace a bunch of really cheap equipment, made a gym garage. He's got a squat rack, he's got a bench press, and you know, when that baby's sleeping, he hits the gym, you know, every other day, right? You know, and he's disciplined with it, and he's got something there for his wife to do, and stuff like that, right? So there's always a way around whatever circumstances in your way, and whether or not you're successful in the gym or in anything in life is going to be how you react to your circumstances.
And a big thing is like, if you go to the gym like 2 to 3 times a week for like 45 minutes each, right? Like you're going to see tremendous benefits compared to not going at all. So I understand the time aspect, right? Like Joe and I, we both worked like on a minimum 60 hours a week up towards like 100 hours a week these last several years, like 5-6 years. So we get it, right? Like we've been like both in sales, right? Both working on building our business with that. And like, so we understand the aspect of like, hey, like you might be very, very busy at times, but it's, for one, having a plan in place, right? Because it's like, hey, all I got to do is go to the gym 2 times this week, 3 times this week for 45 minutes each. Like I can do that, and you're going to benefit so much. And the second thing is just priorities, right? Like I understand the mentality, because it's like, yo, I'm trying to build my business, or I'm trying to take care of my kids. Like I'm trying to like focus on that. But the thing is like the I can't think of the word right now. whatever. But
Hustle, or you're thinking like hustle or something?
the counterintuitive type, it's very counterintuitive because, right, like you're taking time out of your profession or out of something else to go to the gym, right? But down the road, what's going to happen is it's going to pay you back. You're going to have more energy. You're going to be so much more productive when you do go back to work, right? Like, let's say you're working out 2 to 3 to 4 or 5 times a week, whatever it is for you, right? And let's say that takes out 2 to 3 hours of your work week every single week, right? So a lot of people look at that and it's like, yo, I'm working like so much less every week, every month, every year, right? But it's like what that allows you to do is when you show up to work, when you show up to your kids, you're able to have mental clarity. You're not going to have brain fog. You're going to have more focus. You're going to have more natural energy. Essentially, like, bottom line is you're just going to show up as a better person when you first take care of yourself. Like, if you think about it, you can get a new house, you can get a new car, you're going to get new money, right? You can always like build things back that way, but you literally have one body for your entire life. And that's it. And it's like, you can build a whole new business, right? But you only get one body. Just like Jim Rohn said, right? You only get one body, so you might as well invest in it. And that's why I'm a big believer, because it helps me have more confidence, energy, mental clarity, focus, just makes me feel better, you know?
Absolutely. That's wonderful. Next one here, I think we already covered this. It says, I need to be motivated to exercise. Again, that just has everything to do with getting started. Again, it's just a momentum thing. The incorrect way, or the way that leads to less results, would be the idea that I need to feel a certain way in order to do something that is good for me. It's like the idea of I need to feel like eating vegetables to eat them. Sometimes you got to force the vegetables down, to make sure you're getting your vitamins and your fiber and all that stuff, right? You just kind of got to do it. And what happens is you'll learn to love it because you'll feel less lethargic, right? Just like Seth was saying. So it's not about the motivation. It's not about how you feel about it. It's about getting excited about how you're going to feel later. And that's how you can sort of get excited about doing the hard things that maybe you don't want to do right now. Next one, I think Seth covered this a little bit too. I mean, he already knew this list or something. But it says, I get bored easily. Exercise is no fun. Seth, how would you respond to that one?
So again, I think it's like this is actually going to be one of the topics we cover in the second half of this podcast, where it's like when people are working out and they're not seeing results, right? This kind of ties into both. You have to have variation in your exercises. You have to have variation in your workouts, right? I actually covered this in one of my Instagram posts the other day. But if you've been working out for quite some time and you're not seeing progress, or if you're getting bored with the gym or with working out, right? Like, it's probably because you've been doing the exact same thing for long periods of time. And if that's the case, it's going to get boring and you're not going to see results anymore. And so my suggestion is that you change up like anything in your program, whether that's the workouts you're doing, whether that's the amount of reps, the amount of sets, the time under tension, right? How long you're actually doing each of those exercises. You can change so many different things, right? And this helps with a lot of things, right? From the boredom, but also, again, like I was saying, like, you're going to just continue to see results, because what happens is you gotta think of our bodies as an adaptation machine, right? I've been talking about this so much recently on my social medias, and I really want to drive this point home. So it's like, our bodies are adaptation machines. There's one of the principles of training is specificity, right? And with specificity means whatever you're trying to whatever outcome you want, you need to train for that specific thing, right? If I'm going to run a marathon, most of my training needs to be marathon running, right? It needs to be running long distances. You're still going to implement training, like strength training into that, because there's also a lot of benefits from that. You're also going to have mobility and flexibility work in there too, right? Because those are all going to increase your performance with running. Let's say you're playing like football, right? A lot of your exercises are going to be focused on specific movements you're going to do for football, right? So you're going to do more strength and more power type exercises. Or depending on your position, you might do more agility, speed, and quickness type exercises, right? If you want to be here's a perfect example. Think of a sprinter and think of a marathon runner. Their bodies look very different, although they're both runners, right? The marathon runner is typically going to be a lot more lean. They're not going to have a ton of muscle mass on their body because their body wants to adapt to do that thing that they've been training for as efficiently as possible, which means for a marathon runner, they don't need all this extra muscle mass, right? Because that makes it harder for them to do that activity. Let's say for the sprinter, they need to have a lot of power, quickness, right? They need to get off the gun very fast. So typically they have a little bit more muscle mass on them, right? They have bigger quads, bigger glutes, bigger hamstrings because they've been training for that specific thing, right? And once you get to a point in that training, let's say you've been doing the exact same thing for quite some time and you're seeing results and all of a sudden you're just hitting a plateau. Just change something in your program, right? Like I was saying, you can change a lot of different things. But make sure they're like planned out over a period of time because that's going to elicit the best results.
Absolutely. I was doing a lot of heavy squats, a lot of heavy deadlifts. Now I'm doing a lot more reps, a lot more and how you do the reps, a lot more power, quick, explosive, more athleticism, doing more like box jumps, things like that, for example. Just change it up from maybe just a bunch of heavy 8 sets of 3 type lifts, All right. Yeah. So that's great. Thanks, Seth, there. So boredom just comes from, again, just lack of creativity. If you're smart and you plan out your strategic, you'll find fun. I really encourage doing sports once a week or something like that. I play soccer once a week at the bare minimum, and I have a blast. I really look forward to it. And it's a great, cardio workout, and you're getting a lot of sprinting in, things like that, for example. So, get creative with it. You'll find stuff that works for you. What'd you say?
I just want to add one more thing going off of what you said, right? Where it's just like, I think that actually, I'm not going to lie, as I started talking on this point, I totally forgot what the point even was. But the biggest thing is find exercise that you enjoy, right? Like for cardio, if you hate running on a treadmill, then don't fucking run on a treadmill, right? Like
I got to push through, Seth. I got to do it.
I got to grind, right? And I understand the mentality, right? Like I wrestled for 13 years. I wrestled in college. I played football for 10 years. I did door-to-door sales, right? Like I understand the grind, but at the same time, fitness is a lifelong thing, right? Like you don't want to burn yourself out in a few weeks, few months, few years, because every time you're going to exercise, you're doing things that you don't enjoy, right? Like there's principles of fitness, right? You want to follow these principles, right? Like you want to do strength training, you want to do mobility work, all these things, but periodically, like you need to throw in things that you actually enjoy. If you like riding bikes, ride a bike, right? If you like playing soccer, play soccer, whatever it is for you, just like make it enjoyable, get people involved, like switch things up.
Absolutely. The next one is I feel too embarrassed or I'm not sure what to do. I feel uncoordinated at the gym. That's a preventative thing that holds you back. And frankly, if you're starting working out, you probably will feel weird at the gym. Like just go ahead and expect it. If you just expect that, it's gonna be awkward. I'm gonna laugh at it. You know what? If you want people to not look at how you're working out, just wear like mismatched clothing. They'll look at your mismatched clothing. They won't really care what your workout's like, but caring what other people think is a huge inhibitor to not only your workouts and being healthy, but also to your success. It's like, it doesn't matter what the guy next to you is lifting. Maybe the guy next to you 6'5", 320, lifting 600-pound squat, and you're like trying like for 85 today because you've never squatted before, right? I mean, that could obviously, it's super intimidating. You're like, oh my gosh, that guy's just probably been doing it 20 years. Day one, he probably is a stick. Probably, so you just got to realize that what's the iceberg effect, right? The tip of the iceberg is what you see, but you don't see the 90% of the iceberg of all the hard work beforehand, right? So everyone wants you to see that tip, but often you're not seeing the all of the stuff before, right? So it's like you can't let that, get you down, right? So a lot of places, I mean, you could YouTube a bunch of things. I like yoga on YouTube. Probably the most efficient way to get healthy quickly is finding a personal coach, that you like and trust, that takes care of you, that really helps you. Because especially if you're first time working out or haven't done it in a while, you're going to have some mobility issues. You're going to have some flexibility issues. And, what you don't want to do is jump straight into what you used to do back in high school and then start injuring yourself. A lot of people, they'll go and not do stuff, and they're like, oh, I went and played basketball for 2 hours, and the next day I was crushed, when they used to do that every day. It's like, well, your body, again, it's adaptable. So if it's not moving much, it's going to very quickly adapt to not moving much. And so if you just jump right back in and feel really sore, that doesn't mean you should stop working out. It means you should work out differently to prepare your body for that. And then it won't feel that way anymore. Right. So don't go into this mentality that if I feel really, really bad or sore after doing it once, I'm over the hill. It just means you've not done things for a while. That's your body responding to, that was a lot, I need a little bit less, and to work your way into it. If you were to work your way into it, that basketball game's not going to be as tough. That squat's not going to be as awkward, especially if you have somebody trying to help you, encouraging you. And that's kind of what we believe in, with our coaching program, with some of our methodologies that we do over here at Elevate.
The biggest takeaway I took away from that is everyone wants to see the tip.
I don't even remember saying that.
The iceberg.
Oh yeah. Tip of the iceberg, right? There you
go. Definitely the quote of the podcast.
That's right. Right. Everybody got what I was saying.
So one thing that came to my mind as Joe was talking was like the guy who's like the huge jack dude in the gym, right? Like he also had a first day in the gym, right? He also had a beginning to his journey, right? And I'm going to share my screen real quick. And you're going to see, right? Like in the same frame, you see me freaking jacked preparing for my first physique competition, but you also see me when I was in 7th grade at 75 pounds, right? Like I was a little guy. And you see some of these comments. But I was a really small kid, and like my freshman year of high school, that was my first time going to the gym. I had zero idea what I was doing. Right. And over time, you just put in the work. You can start slow, right? You don't have to feel sore to like be having progress, right? In the beginning, you're probably going to be sore, like Joe said, but just ease into it if you need to, right? 2 to 3 days a week if you haven't been in the gym ever or in a while, and then just work up from there, right?
Absolutely. So last point here, and then we're just going to run through our methodology of how we coach and some big takeaways, a really structured approach to your workouts. But the last one here is I've tried before and I can't stick with a program. I've got a friend, she's into fitness, and she's been working on some different, workouts, especially for her back and things like this. And I remember she was telling me about, working with a coach for about 6 months, and she was talking about her results or what she's been getting, and how, at the beginning it seemed really cool and was super exciting, and then she was working into it. And then at some point she missed, because of a busy schedule, a couple calls or something. Things got busy, right? She became inconsistent or whatever. And the coach, for example, got mad at her and said that you don't get any more coaching calls, for example, out of just pure malice. And it's just like, things like that, where it's like, you don't have a good coach who just like actually cares about you, or you don't have, that can happen with that. I mean, that's one probably extreme example. Sometimes just inconsistencies in ourselves and feeling guilty, for example, if we miss something, but you never need to feel guilty if you're missing. It takes inconsistency to become consistent, right? So you've got to start somewhere. And just having somebody in your corner encouraging you and texting you like, hey, did you work out today? And you're like, dang it, no. They're like, hey, you should go. And then you do, right? So that's important when you're looking at a coaching program. What's the character, the principles, of that coach? Are they going to get mad at you because you missed a time in their schedule, or is it about you? Is it about you and your progress and helping you do well? And if it's you're a few minutes late, how do you want that coach to treat you? Those are the things you should ask, when you're interviewing a coach or getting to know them. It's just really see, do you like that person? Can you jive with that person? you want to be coached by that person a lot of times, or what's that philosophy that they're going to do? Ask tons of questions about that, because you'll find a lot of coaching programs don't really have a philosophy. They sort of just give you a workout and say good luck, and they call you once a week and be like, did you do it? I guess Seth, if you want to just go over a few of those important factors that we kind of cover at Elevate that could be helpful for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and before I go through the elevation model, one thing Joe kind of mentioned is like having grace, right? And that's with yourself as well as like your coach should have grace for you as well, and I think this helps with your unconditional confidence, right? Knowing it's like, hey, if I'm ever on a journey, like let's say with your fitness or with goals, like financially or whatever it is, right? Like you got to know everyone is human. We all make mistakes. And because of that, if you just give yourself grace when you make those mistakes, then what happens is you're not holding on to that mistake. You're not letting that one mistake or however many mistakes you're making, or the time you took a shortcut or whatever it might be, right? Like if you don't give yourself grace, you're going to like really hold on to all that. And it's going to affect your future decisions, right? It might affect your self-image because you're like, hey, maybe I don't deserve this thing, right? Where instead, if you're like, hey, I missed the gym, because I'll be 100% honest with you guys. These last 2 weeks, I have not gone to the gym a ton of times. Like I have not been on the same schedule workout wise that I have been like for the previous few months. And you know what? Part of me is like, like I'm not, I want to be in great shape right now. One of my goals is to be in the best shape of my life, which is kind of crazy because I competed in a physique competition last year. Right. And it's like, even when times like this happen, I just give myself grace. It's like, hey, I make mistakes. I'm human too. I'm still going to get back on track. Here's still where I'm going. I know what it's going to take, but I'm not going to hold on to the fact that like these last 2 weeks, I haven't been the best about it. Right. And that helps with so many things. And then going to what Joe was mentioning about like what we call our elevation model, right? So it's essentially what we take our clients through to make sure like with our coaches that we're getting our clients results, right? And the bottom of the pyramid, right, is consistency. And this is the same for everything you do, not just fitness. It's like whatever you do in life, consistency is the number one thing that's going to help you achieve results. Right? Like as long as you show up to work and put in the work consistently, right? As long as you're showing up to your family, to your spouse consistently, right? As long as you're showing up to the gym and putting in work, right? That's like the baseline. You have to be consistently doing it, right? And before you go too crazy, you can be doing things consistently wrong, right? But if you're consistently in the gym, if you're consistently putting in the work, that's the first step, right? That's the toughest part, honestly, to like get people to, I'll say consistently do, right? But consistency is the number one thing. It's the bottom of it's the foundation of the pyramid. The second thing is there's kind of two in this second pillar, which is exercising 2 to 5 times per week for 45 plus minutes, right? Depending on your goals, depending how like your activity level will determine how many times per week. And then the other one is macronutrients and calories, right? So after you have the consistency down, whenever if you're going to the gym 2 times per week and you haven't been going for a while, you're going to see a lot of results, right? You may not be in the best shape of your life, but as long as you have that consistency, you're going to the gym, you're exercising 2 to 5 times a week for 45 plus minutes. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. You're going to see so many results. If you also add on eating your macros and the right amount of calories, right? So the way you can figure out your calorie intake, type in tdeecalculator.net. You go to that website and you type in your basic info, your age, your height, your weight, your body fat percentage, your activity level, When you get to the body fat percentage part, Google body fat percentage, right? Look at the picture and estimate where you are if you don't know exactly. That'll give you the amount of calories you burn per day with exercise and activity. Once you have that number, don't change anything about your eating. Start tracking your eating for like at the minimum, like 3 days, at the very minimum, right? If not 2 weeks, if not for like a couple weeks at a time, right? You don't have to do this forever, because if I'm being honest, I don't track my food, but that's because I'm at the intuitive eating phase. I've been doing this very intentionally for over 10 years. For the average person, you're not going to want to track your meals all the time, right? But you do want to do it periodically so you have a baseline for where you're at. So let's say your TDEE is 2,800 calories, right? Let's say after you start tracking for 3 days, you realize you've only been eating like 2,000 calories. Don't, like, the next day, don't all of a sudden start eating 2,800 calories, right? Work your way up to that. Slowly increase your calories by, let's say, like 150 to 200, let's say 150 to 300 calories in that first day, and then do your best at hitting that number for like a week and a half, 2 weeks or so, and then increase those calories again by like 200 to 300 calories, right? And then so you're slowly going to be working up or down to that TDEE. And once you're there, what's going to happen is your metabolism is going to start working the way it should be working. Because most people, it's going to sound funny, but most people are either overeating or undereating. Not a lot of people are eating the right amount of calories they're supposed to be eating. And then macronutrients, right? Your macros are your carbs, proteins, and fats. I'm not going to go super in depth on that. We'll talk about that in another podcast, right? But carbs, proteins, and fats are your macronutrients, which means they're nutrients your body uses in large quantities. Okay. Now, next step of the pyramid, another 2, which is 10K steps a day. I like to say keeps the doctor away.
Clever.
And then micronutrients, right? So the 10,000 steps, like, that's just a baseline. What this is really summarized by is your activity level, right? So a lot of people have a lot of health issues and kind of like bodily issues because they're very inactive. They're sitting a lot of the day. A very easy way that you can increase your metabolism is just increase your activity level a little bit, right? Like 10,000 steps a day is not crazy. So whether you have to wear an Apple Watch, track it on your iPhone, or Fitbit, a Whoop band, whatever you have to do to track your steps, right? Like, just shoot for that 10,000 plus steps a day mark. That's a good baseline. Micronutrients are nutrients your body requires in small quantities, right? So vitamins, minerals, and phytonutrients are your micronutrients. You can get these from a lot of vegetables and fruits. Very simple way to get them, vegetables and fruits. You can also get them from vitamins. And then the next level of the pyramid is hydration, right? Depending on your activity level, depending on your size, you should be drinking, like, I've heard anything from like 0.6 of a gallon up to like 1.2 gallons, right? If you're a small girl, like 120-pound girl, you could probably drink closer to like the 0.8, like the 0.6 to 0.8 mark. If you're a bigger dude who's very active, you might be able to drink closer to like that 1 to 1.2 mark, right? And then the very pinnacle of the pyramid is variability. And variability is what I was talking about earlier, pretty in depth, which was like, it's funny because the very bottom of the pyramid is consistency and the very top of the pyramid is variability, right? You have to be consistent with getting into the gym, eating like the right amount of food, eating the right quality of food, but also you have to be switching things up, mostly in your training, right? You don't have to really change things up in your diet as much if you're eating the right foods. The biggest variability you need in your diet is just like a plethora of like different type of vegetables, plethora of different type of food, so you can get different nutrients. But variability in your training, like I was saying earlier. So those are the 8 pillars of success in the elevation model that we go through all of our clients to make sure they're consistently getting results.
Absolutely love it. Well, thank you all for being here on the Elevate, Nation podcast. Is that what we're 100% calling it now? Elevate Nation podcast?
Elevate your life.
Elevate your life podcast, right? Wink, wink, face. Elevate your life. Thank you for being here for the Elevate Your Life podcast. We appreciate you guys. We hope this was super helpful. We hope that you would subscribe to our podcast or YouTube, different social medias. Our mission is to help make fitness and being healthier just a more sustainable thing. That's not, this big fad, or not this just one thing you do once a month. Instead, it's a lot of small things that you start doing over time to help you be healthy your whole life, and avoid some of the, the pain that a lot of people go through, especially in the United States, with a lot of our different, fast foods and things like that, and a lot of our different, health issues as a nation. So we hope it helps, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.
Peace.